Got It podcast. And welcome back. It is going to be a freaking jam-packed episode.
We warned you.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be, and then it still is so much more than what I thought it was going to be. We're going to get into all of it. Michigan State no longer has Jonathan Smith as the head coach of the football program. And as of just a few minutes ago, they have officially announced the new head coach. So we've got all that coming in the episode. We've got women's soccer to cover. We've got ice hockey to cover. We've got 2 men's basketball wins to cover. And just so much related to the football program, which is probably what you guys are all dying to hear. Before we get into that, just quick little plug. We would love for you to stop whatever you're doing right now. And if you haven't ever before, or you've only done it on one platform, please go on to Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. I don't care where you're watching this, listening to this, whatever. We would love if you could just show our little podcast some love. I think especially right now with so much changing in the Spartan sports landscape of the football program, so many questions, so much like looking for information, misinformation, all the things. Like, this is a time for the Spartan community to come together, and we would love to be at the center of that. So please like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment, send us to a friend. Subscribe to Spartans Illustrated if you feel so led. There's going to be, I know, just a lot of really important and impactful pieces that are going to be written, information that's going to be communicated, and you don't want to miss out on any of it. So be sure to head on over to Spartans Illustrated. We Got a Podcast is an official podcast of Spartans Illustrated, and we are just super fortunate to be partnered with them. And I think especially on a day like today, it's so important to remember this is all about student athletes. Like, this is all about telling their stories, elevating them. And that's part of what we're here to do, and to help you get all of that in. Today's not going to be a 45-minute episode. I just already know. Buckle in, guys. We've got a lot to cover. What did I miss, Jonah?
I think you covered all the housekeeping items.
My brain is just spinning because there has been so much information to consume in the last 24 plus hours. Where do we start? I think maybe we start where we left you guys off last week.
Yeah, I mean, we warned you at the end of our episode last week that this would likely be a jam-packed episode, that there's going to be a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
I don't think we thought there would be this much to discuss already. And yeah, this has been an eventful 48 hours.
Yeah, J-Bat's moving quick.
Going back to Friday or Saturday night at Ford Field. To start off, Spartans finally got a victory.
Heck yeah. I am so happy to be wrong. I was going to say I've never been more happy to be wrong, but I could have been a lot happier.
That's true.
To be wrong. But I was wrong, and I'm happy about it.
Michigan State takes care of business against Maryland. In a pretty exciting game, considering all of the factors, or
the lack
non-factors,
of stakes,
in that game. Honestly, good for the team, good for the players, good for hecking Alante Brown, returning the kick for a touchdown. Couldn't have happened literally, to a more deserving guy.
His career's just been so fraught with hurdles and barriers and injuries and
everything.
All the things.
So shout out Alante Brown for ending your career out in an incredible fashion, giving Spartan fans a lot of reasons to cheer on Saturday night. But it wasn't all, I guess depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Within the football program, the focus quickly changed once the final whistle blew.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of time to bask in that win.
To the future of head coach Jonathan Smith. As soon as his press conference after the game, his numerous questions talking about his future. And even in that time, I wouldn't say he was acting that different. He kind of seemed like his normal self for the most part.
Yeah.
Plus the questions he was getting asked about his future. When asked about if he knew if he would be back next year. He said he didn't know at that point.
Yeah.
But
which is like, what else are you supposed to say? Even if you do know, he's not supposed to share that decision. I don't know. Like, props to him, I guess, if he did know and continued to act with that kind of aplomb. I don't
yeah,
know.
but I mean, I think in a lot of ways, rightly so, a lot of attention after that game went towards his future, whether he would be back or whether he would
Oh
be
yeah, I
fired.
mean, I feel like all of it's just been building to that point.
And J Bat, whether or not you give him credit or not for being so buttoned up about this, really had not tipped his hand at all. No leaks. We at Spartans Illustrated really didn't get confirmation or validation that it sounded like Michigan State would be moving on from Smith until kind of during the Maryland game for the most part.
Yeah.
But Michigan State after the game ended up moving on pretty quick. Sunday afternoon announced the firing of Jonathan Smith via a press release from the athletic department and Jay Batt. And very quickly from that point, a name started circulating.
Even before that.
Yeah. On that, a lot of you guys have probably are aware, if you're not, that Pat Fitzgerald, the former Northwestern Wildcat coach for 16 years, was the guy that Michigan State was eyeing. Then reports started coming out Thursday or Sunday. Sorry, that would.
What day is it? I don't know. Thanksgiving was last week. We're here.
That Michigan State was likely to hire Pat Fitzgerald, and then if you're listening to this on Tuesday, Monday evening, Michigan State officially announced that Pat Fitzgerald would be the next football coach.
Yeah. We're going to get into all that. We're gonna get into all of it. I mean, you laid it out pretty beautifully. The thing that us podcasters hate is that J Bat was so buttoned up about this, and we couldn't yap about it over multiple episodes. No, I'm just kidding. But it is like whiplash, because we went from a week ago being like, we could have Smith to like, and I think this is where I felt like when we were gonna put this episode out, it'd be like, okay, Smith is either staying or gone. And likely in my mind gone, and like, okay, we're going to start talking about candidates. We're going to see who's available. Not like, oh no, they already had this guy lined up, which makes a lot of sense now in hindsight. Why nothing was communicated until now. Like, for those of you who don't know, Fitzgerald wasn't coaching this season, so it would seem to me to be easier to like have these kinds of conversations and stuff going on during the season under the radar. But I have so many questions. I have several concerns. I don't know a lot. I'm gonna admit that straight up. I have a personal opinion that I have formed already about the coaching decision. It's not well informed. Like, it's not a well informed opinion. So I know I'm going to come into this episode with bias, and that's part of having a podcast. Like, we're supposed to have opinions, I think. You can tell us if you want us to have opinions or not. But like, I already have formed an opinion. So I want to put that out there. And I think you and I probably are coming at it from different places. Yeah, I was shocked. I think that's a good word. I was shocked by the fact that he was chosen. But I don't know. Do we want to get into that yet? Do we want to break down? I mean, I don't know how much there is left to say about Jonathan Smith. Like, I don't know. Maybe Tom Izzo put it best today. He had a press conference and was asked about essentially like, what do you think of them getting rid of Jonathan Smith? And he just kind of said, in this day and age, like, you don't have time to build a program. He's like, you used to have 4 or 5 years. Like, you used to have the grace. He's like, now it feels like sometimes all you have is weeks. And he's like, maybe that's an exaggeration, but and I think he seemed very like sympathetic towards Jonathan Smith and the fact that he was fired. He seemed to indicate that Jonathan Smith was taking it with a lot of character and like taking it very well and understood the decision, which again, like, all this comes back to, and we've talked about this, and I hope you haven't ever heard anything different from us. Like, I think Jonathan Smith is a good person. I think that he is a good leader. I would even go so far to say as he's a good coach, but he was not the right fit for Michigan State at this point.
Yes.
And I think too, like what Tom was saying, you used to be able to have 4 or 5 years. I would even argue in a program that hasn't been fraught with the difficulties that Michigan State's has been since 2020, you could. Like, I could see if Jonathan Smith had come in straight after D'Antonio, he could have had 4 or 5 years. If Jonathan Smith had come in after a Mel Tucker that didn't blow the school up, just like another coach that had been mediocre, I think he could have had a few years. But the stakes were so high for this position, and he got hired at a high salary to come in and do big things. And I think that's what it comes back to, is like he didn't deliver. And in fact, it looked like we went backwards this year. And I think that's just not something that could happen in the climate at Michigan State in 2025 with the events that have occurred in the last 5 to 6 years occurring.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Totally. I mean, the point you made about this kind of era of Michigan State football, like, the reality is, like, kind of everybody involved, from the fans to former players to donors to the athletic department, the reality is, like, everybody's run out of patience. Some of that is fair. Some of that is probably not fair. And I think you can have that conversation on a lot of different factors with this. Like you said, like Jonathan Smith, by all accounts, everything that we know about him, it seems like a coach with high integrity, high values, that is well respected and loved by his players, by his peers.
Which is no small thing to continue to earn that from your players, even when you go 4-8 on the season.
Exactly. And like we talked about, maybe there were some games earlier, especially that UCLA game, where kind of effort seemed to be lacking. But I don't think at any real point, I would say honestly, since that UCLA game where like effort was an issue with these players. A lot of times in some of these games, it seemed like these guys are working their butts off. It's just the fact of the matter, like, they aren't as talented as these teams are playing. And unfortunately, a lot of areas weren't being coached as well as some of these other teams. And I think this isn't a decision that Jay Batt wanted to have to make this soon into his tenure. But like you said, in this current landscape at Michigan State, with the
very specific events that have occurred
and downs that have occurred over the last couple coaching staffs, several athletic directors, Michigan State can't afford to see not only a lack of progress in year 2 under a coach, but a regression, it would appear, in a lot of areas. And that's ultimately what I believe drew Jay Batt to having to make this decision. And I think part of too, like, I don't think Jay Batt was just licking his lips, waiting for this opportunity to get rid of Smith. Like,
I mean, I don't know. You don't know, Jonah.
I mean, you're right. I don't think anybody wanted to get rid of Jonathan Smith, but there are certain things that, like you said, it just clearly wasn't working at Michigan State.
Yeah.
And some of that was Jonathan Smith's fault. Some of those are factors that Jonathan Smith couldn't control.
Right. And I really feel for him, because I think it seems to be too, and it's so hard because Alan Haller's, the old athletic director for Michigan State, is no longer there. It seems like there were promises or resources that were indicated to Jonathan Smith, whether, I don't know, monetarily or otherwise, that he was going to get, that he didn't. And, so I do feel for Jonathan Smith in so many ways. It sounds like it was maybe kind of like a controversial hire of him in the first place between Alan Haller and Donors. Like, Donors might have wanted to go a different direction, but Alan Haller really pushed for Smith, told Smith he was going to get resources that maybe he didn't end up fully getting access to during his short tenure at Michigan State. And then, just all the other factors that I think maybe some people, shout out to my dad, because he saw this coming a long time ago, of just like a coach going from the Pac-12 in a smaller school that had middling success coming to the Midwest and the Big Ten. And like we talk about Power 4, but you and I were talking about that this weekend. It's really like Power 2 when it comes to football. Like SEC is just stacked. And then, portions of the Big Ten. And so he went to like the hardest conference of all of the conferences and was expected to have a high level of success early. And I think it goes back to like part of the things that have made me so frustrated about him, and my rants about like him just wanting to execute more and just do better and do more things, is like where he came from, that was enough. Like that was enough to jump the gap in talent. That was enough. It was like just having your players committed, locked in, working hard. But that's not the case in the Big Ten. That's not the case in the Power 4 or the Big Ten and SEC. Like it's just not enough. So I do feel for him in a lot of ways. And we talked about this. Like I feel a lot for the coaching staff, because so often that staff is leaving everything to follow this head coach. And we've had the opportunity to get to know some of that staff through various routes, and you just feel for them, because it's like, oh my gosh, you see how they've invested and it's a job, right? Like it is a job, but also a brutal tumultuous experience, and it's not a light decision, I think. And the closer you are to it, the more you realize it's not a light decision. And everything that I know of Jay Batt, he seems like a very like level-headed, smart, calculated, not in like a devious way, just like he's thinking through all the factors, and he's going to see all of that even more up close and personal than we can sitting here in our living room, even with the limited, exposure that we get. I don't know. Do you see where I'm going with that? It's just like, it is so much more complex. And I think it's very easy in the heat of the moment to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad Smith's gone. And frankly, well, before I knew who the new head coach was, like I was like, okay, good. We're getting a fresh start. Like let's be done with this. Let's move on. So, I don't know. Anything else you want to say about Smith?
No, yeah, I think it is just like it's a weird feeling, because like when Michigan State obviously unexpectedly fired Tucker, I think everybody was like, good riddance. Like,
what do you mean unexpectedly fired Tucker?
Like in the night before, basically, a football.
Oh, yes. Like
game,
it was in the middle. Yeah, but it wasn't unexpected because of what he did.
Right, but
yeah,
I'm saying,
I get what you're saying. Like the scandal was unexpected.
But like with Smith, you kind of saw this coming.
Right.
I think most people kind of expected that this would happen this weekend,
or that there was a high probability that it was going to happen.
But like, because of Smith and like we said, just some of his qualities, I feel like we said, he is coach of a lot of integrity. That's well like respected in a lot of areas. Like, it's not like, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Right.
Like, I feel like there's the feeling's a lot different. It's like, this is the right decision, I think, but it's also not like, I wish this would have worked out. I wish that Jonathan Smith would be able to find success at Michigan State, because there's a lot of things I did like about Jonathan Smith.
We talked about that when he first came on board. Like, he had a lot of elements of Mark D'Antonio that I really appreciated. Like, there were parts of times where I did really appreciate his stoicism and his grit and his unwillingness to compromise like what he wanted. But then it just became clear, like, this isn't working. Like, this isn't like a culture. It's just not working.
Yeah.
And I think going back to talking about like what an upstanding guy he is, I wonder now, like, especially with the information coming out about like the illegal recruitment under Mel Tucker and the sanctions, and like supposedly the university self-reported that stuff in April. Who knows how long they knew about some of that beforehand? Like, there's so many more things now. Hindsight is 2020. Like, how much of the decision to hire Smith was truly for like his coaching skill or his prowess, or the fact that he was like a completely pure white sheet after the crud that was everything that happened with Mel Tucker by the end of his tenure at Michigan State.
I think, it's a great point. I mean, obviously, like, he had success at Oregon State, more success than they'd ever had. And like the deck was very much stacked against him. And like in a lot of ways he was set up to fail.
Yeah.
And a lot of this stuff was unfair to Jonathan Smith.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, how much of that was, this is going to look good for the optics that we're hiring this family man, you know, this guy that's just very upstanding, has a very clean, pure record. Like, that's not, I just would, that's where I'm just saying I feel for Jonathan Smith too, because that's not really what you want to be evaluated on solely, right? Like, yes, love that your reputation is fantastic and that should be a pro for you. But I do wonder how much more that, I'm just asking, like, I'm curious how much, and we'll never know, but like how much that actually weighed into the choice to hire him versus someone who's controversial. Like, you know, I know at the time Urban Meyer was floated out, and not even that he had, I don't know, but just he was kind of a blank slate for many, many different factors. The new coach, because we can say that now because he's officially been announced as the new head coach, doesn't come with a blank slate, and we'll get there in a second. Let's start with why this could be a good hire for Michigan State.
Yeah.
If we can, if you want to start there.
Yeah, I mean, I think to start off with, this is a coach, Pat Fitzgerald, who for 16 years at Northwestern did more with less, one of the hardest jobs in the entire country.
Yeah.
For multitude of reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, immediately I'm like, we hired Northwestern's coach? Like, Northwestern's coach? No one gives a crap about football at Northwestern.
But you think about just from the start, you can't recruit the same pool of players that Michigan State can, that most teams in the country can, because of your admissions requirements, being an academic first school. Your ability to recruit players is automatically, no matter how good of a coach you are, is so much more limited.
Yeah.
But then you also look at a school like Northwestern that isn't really known for having a big fan base, having great resources.
They didn't even like have a stadium for a couple of years, right? They were like playing in the middle of nowhere.
I mean, yeah, their old field, Ryan Field, was literally a glorified high school stadium where, I kid you not, every single home game there was more opposing fans in the stands.
Didn't matter who it was.
I remember being at the Northwestern Michigan State game in Evanston in 2017.
Yeah.
And it was probably 2/3 Michigan State fans. Like, no joke.
Yeah.
They just didn't have the resources, and they didn't have the investment into athletics that other schools do. And Pat Fitzgerald was able to have 4 9+ win seasons, won the Big Ten West twice in 2018 and 2020, so 2 Big Ten championship,
like somewhat recently,
appearances. Very well respected. Was a guy that was Michigan tried to hire in 2011 when they hired Rich Rodriguez, and he told them no.
Fitzgerald told them no.
Yes.
And chose to stay at Northwestern.
And there's a lot of other
that's very interesting
top programs, even NFL teams that tried to go after Pat Fitzgerald. And he, being an alma mater of Northwestern, a captain on their first Rose Bowl team, he wanted to be at Northwestern. So I think by all accounts, when you're talking about just football, highly respected coach among his peers, among other programs, among the NFL. Instantly, right away, he is the second most experienced coach in the Big Ten as far as how long they've coached in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Having 16 years under his belt in the Big Ten, he understands it. He understands the region. Obviously, being in Chicago for the last 20+ years.
I mean, that was like one of the first immediate things was I was, following on the hills of like, are you kidding me? We're going after Northwestern's coach. I was like, Okay, but it's someone from the Midwest who understands how hard it is to recruit in this area, who understands the Big Ten, who understands being an underdog in the Big Ten and taking up space when you don't have very many resources, which, you know, pending some rumors that are floating around right now, is the state that Michigan State is in right now. Like, you're now paying whatever fines to the NCAA. The settlement with Mel Tucker's still floating out there in the ether. Now you're going to have to pay off Jonathan Smith. Like, we are quickly dwindling in what resources we have. So, you know, there's a lot of elements of that are like, okay, like maybe I could see why that's a good fit. I have like some, and maybe you're not done talking about the positives, so I don't mean to go there, but just like to play devil's advocate a little bit, because my initial thought was, again, this was from like a very or a not very informed or educated understanding of who this man is. It was kind of like, really? Like, this is who we're firing Jonathan Smith for? Like, let's just keep Jonathan Smith and give him a couple more years. Because, and this is where my mind goes, yeah, okay, he had, how many seasons did you say over 9 wins? 4? Out of 16 seasons as a head coach. How long did it take him to get to the Big Ten championship?
12
years. Right? He started there in 2006, 2007. And then didn't get to a Big Ten championship. Again, at Northwestern with very limited resources.
Totally
like,
fair.
I understand it. But it took him 12 years to get there. Like, those optics, it's just so hard to know, like, is that actually good? Like, how do you actually stack up the lack of resources, the lack of investment, the lack of fan base at Northwestern, and like you had this much time to get things done? And I'm just thinking back to the Tom Izzo quote, like, now this next coach is even going to be put to the fire even more, because we've just essentially wasted 2 years with Jonathan Smith. Because we're going to talk about the transfer portal and all the guys that are going to be leaving here in a minute. You know what I mean? Like, it's like we don't have time for this to be another rebuild. Maybe we do. I don't know. Maybe we all have to dig down deep to get the very dregs of our patience.
Yeah, I mean,
don't know.
I think that's all very fair. I mean, like you said, like it took him kind of a while to reach that high point that he took the program to. But then also, if you look at his last 2 years at Northwestern, and again, there's some other factors to this, but his last 2 seasons at Northwestern, he was 4-20.
Yeah.
Granted, those were yes. So yeah, not great.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Granted, those were the first 2 years kind of NIL. And I don't think Northwestern was ever going to be in a position to kind of come off the mat quickly in that era, with kind of how we've talked about the limited resources they already have before that.
Of a fan base.
But yeah, absolutely. That is a valid concern. I think it's a valid question to have. Yeah, there's a lot of those questions when it comes with this hire. I think in a lot of ways there are a lot of boxes that are checked. In a lot of ways there are like valid concerns when it comes to this hire.
Yeah. So, elephant in the room. Anybody who didn't know who Pat Fitzgerald was and Googled him, you know, one of the first things that you're going to see as a result is, you know, Pat Fitzgerald settles with Northwestern over hazing scandal. Pat Fitzgerald, you know. And so it's already like, if you're like me and just kind of traumatized by all of the, I mean, like, let's be honest, there has been a lot of really negative, horrible things that have involved Michigan State athletic adjacent people over the last 10, 15 years. And just in general, like, Michigan State has had to go through so much loss, so much hurt, especially when it comes to sexual abuse, sexual assault with Larry Nassar, you know, sexual assault with Mel Tucker, physical assault and shooting of students on campus. Like, there has just been so much pain that has happened at the university and the community in general. Like, East Lansing is a small community. Lansing in general is a small community. Michigan, in a lot of ways, is a small community, and people are like very invested in what is happening at these schools. Even just, the tiffs. I hate bringing up all this stuff, but the tiffs between Michigan and Michigan State and the tunnel controversy and the sign stealing. Like, there's just so much, and it's probably happening everywhere. There's so much drama and chaos and like actual really heavy, serious things that have already happened. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. I think that's part of why Jonathan Smith was hired, to help just like get some of that out of the system. And then we're going to go and hire someone. And I want you to hear me very clearly when I say this, because again, I am not very informed. I need to do more research. I am going to be doing more research because I'm hoping to write a piece on all of this. Are we really going to go after someone who is even associated with any hint of some kind of scandal, hazing situation that involved sexual assault acts as part of it? Like, and I know there's people that are out there, they're going to be like, well, that was disproven and this is whatever. And I'm not trying to be rude, but like, okay, even if it was, like, why even go there? Like, why even bring up someone as a candidate who is currently not coaching because they got fired over these allegations? And yes, he settled and whatever, but if Michigan State settles with Mel Tucker, that just automatically means that he didn't commit any of the things that he did. Like, that's a BS argument. I'm just going to call that out right now, because that actually really ticks me off when people are like, oh, well, he settled, so that means everything was fine. No, that's not what that means. It just means that people have money, and where there's money, there's power, and all the things. Like, that was my immediate, like, seriously? I don't know.
No, I think that's, again, all valid concerns. I think the first thing that came to my mind, especially with the fact that Northwestern came out and said that there was no evidence of him knowing about this, about him condoning this, or ever being told about this until it became public. Which there's kind of two sides to this coin. Like, part of me was like,
no, that's fine.
No,
let's have this discussion. That's why I like it.
Part of me thinks, like, yes, he's the head football coach, but a head football coach, just like a parent, isn't going to know every single thing that their kids or their players do when they're not around.
Yeah.
But also, the standard that me and a lot of Michigan State fans and fans across the country had, obviously very different situations with a guy like Jim Harbaugh.
That's literally where my mind just went.
There has been no evidence per se that he knew about the sign stealing scandal. And kind of, I've seen from a lot of Michigan State fans, from a lot of people say, it doesn't matter if he actually didn't know or not.
Yeah.
He's running this program. He should have known.
Yes.
So again, these situations are very different.
Yeah.
I'm not comparing them apples to apples, but I think in some ways that same standard for a head coach, who in a lot of ways is more of a CEO than somebody just writing on a whiteboard and calling up plays. There should, part of me is like,
it's your job to know.
We still have to have, we can't be inconsistent
Yeah.
when we talk about Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
And again, it's different.
No, but
that directly was involving games.
Yes.
This wasn't. I'm not trying to say it's, again, the same thing, but I think there is some level of validity to having that standard for your head football coach.
And then I think what is the same, though, is the rhetoric around it, like how people are going about having these conversations. Because as a Michigan State fan, you can't point fingers. In my opinion, it's very challenging for me to see how it's okay to point fingers and say, yeah, with Harbaugh, okay, maybe he didn't know about Connor Stallions, maybe he didn't know about the sign stealing, but he should have known. Like, you are, I mean, so many laws are like that. I can think of multiple examples of, if someone is committing a felony or whatever in your business, you are completely ignorant of it. Like, the way that some laws are written, like, you can still be prosecuted for it because it's under your legal jurisdiction. Like, it is your job as a head coach to know everything that is going on with your team. And if you don't, there's probably a reason why. Like you're either allowing someone to let you turn a blind eye, or you are choosing to turn a blind eye, or you are, you know what I like. So you can't, as a Spartan fan, I don't think, point fingers at that and say that's not okay. Harbaugh should have gotten, the stiff for this, which I think it's very telling, everything that he did, and immediately after that, fleeing to the NFL. And then flip the narrative when it comes to Pat Fitzgerald. Like, and this is where I'm saying, and I wanted to say, like, hear me very clearly. I don't care. I literally don't even care at all if he didn't know, and if you came out and like 100%, you had every piece of evidence to absolve him of this. I don't care. And this was my initial gut reaction with everything that Michigan State has been through in the last 10 to 15 years. Why even go near anybody who has a whiff of being associated with anything? Which maybe is me like living in La La Land. Like maybe there truly aren't coaching, which is sad. Like maybe there aren't other Jonathan Smiths. Like there aren't other guys who actually are upstanding human beings. Or haven't had, accusations brought against them. And that's the other thing that we've been hearing, right? It's like, people bring up this very rapidly in the last 24 hours talking about Pat Fitzgerald, oh, well, Mark D'Antonio had allegations brought against him, or, oh, Tom Izzo had allegations brought against him. I think that's very different when that's someone who is already in the program. We knew their character. The university could look into, you know what I mean? Like, versus something that happened at a different school that you are only ever going to get part of the information out of because of legal reasons or whatever. Like that to me is also a very, very different scenario versus someone who's already in-house, that has relationships at Michigan State, that what's going on during those allegations, versus, I don't know. Like I'm just pushing back because it does feel so precarious, this coaching decision. And as we're talking about, this is making more and more sense why everything was so under wraps, because clearly, in my mind, maybe not clearly, like Jay Batt, we've talked about, seems to be a very intelligent man. So why would he make a poor decision? One is like one thing that's making me maybe trust him, but also he's only been around for like 7 months, so I don't know. But two, if he knew that there was going to be this much backlash, I can see why he would want to keep it under wraps and to make the transition as quickly as possible so that people couldn't decry it and shoot it down and interfere with the hiring process.
No, I mean,
I don't know.
I think everything you bring up are valid concerns. I think questions that need to be asked. I think those are questions that when on Tuesday afternoon, when Pat Fitzgerald is introduced as the head coach, when he's given the opportunity to come in front of the fans and the media for the first time, like I'm sure it's going to come up questions regarding that. I'm sure that Jay Batt and President Gutskowitz are going to get questions,
good questions
revolving that. And like, I think that's important to ask those questions. And I think, again, answers in a press conference aren't going to be like, you can kind of,
they're not going to be the most
good
genuine
pinned up answers
setting.
But I also think like a willingness to talk about it from all three of those men, not a dismissal. What we saw with a lot of the things with Michigan and their science stealing scandal, being willing to answer those tough questions. I know there's been kind of a podcast circulating the last day or so where Pat Fitzgerald was on one of ESPN's college football podcasts. And he was kind of
really interested to listen to that.
Asked some of those questions.
How long ago was this? Do you know?
It was this fall sometime.
Okay, so recently.
Yeah, and he was kind of talking about how he
When exactly did he get fired from Northwestern?
2022.
Jeez. And he has not been coaching anywhere since?
He's been coaching his son's high school team in suburban Chicago the last couple of years. And that was kind of part of the reason he was talking about on the podcast, is that he was ready to get back into coaching. He's been preparing for this. He's been saying that he's been getting a PhD in modern college football. And if you haven't checked that out, I think it's a piece of information that you can add to this whole development with Pat Fitzgerald. Again, like I said, on a podcast, as you guys know, listening, there's a lot of BS that is said.
Queen of BS over here.
But he kind of talked about that, and again, talked about how he felt vindicated by a situation and the process that played out, but also just like, I didn't see a man like shying away from talking about that, like saying, however genuine it was, like, I wish I would have known sooner. That's my job as a coach, is like, young men mess up, and just like my kids mess up, like I would have wanted to walk alongside them and help them know how to make better decisions. So like, at least initially, I was like encouraged that he's not just like, oh yeah, that's settled. I'm like
had a willingness to talk about it. And like you said, I mean, how genuine can you be when it's someone on the other side of the screen and you don't really know the context? But like you said, it would have been probably a lot easier for him to just like, oh, I can't talk about that for legal reasons.
Right. And he was saying like, I wish I would have known. I wish I could have been able to like step in, because I know I would have, like, nobody was better suited to step in to help in that situation and make things right. Than myself.
And if you're listening to this and you're not familiar, I'm not going to get into the details of what happened with the hazing that took place at Northwestern. And that's pretty clear that did take place. That's also something that's really frustrating to me, is when people are like, well, none of that happened. It was shown. Like, no, there's really solid evidence that what happened with the hazing took place, and it specifically targeted underclassmen, freshman players. You can look up the articles and see what was involved. But it was sexual assault. And I don't care. Like, it's easy, I think, for people to be like, oh, well, that wasn't actually that big of a deal. Like, nothing actually happened. But I would just challenge you to like believe survivors and believe, people who have gone through something extremely traumatic and came out and shared about it. Like, I just need to say that, because I think it's so easy, I think, to be really dismissive of some very deeply problematic behaviors. And like, I just want to make it very clear that like, it did happen. You can, do your own research and look into it if you want to know more. But yeah, and I hear what you're saying too, of like, I can see that from personal experience. Like, families are messy. Like, I know parents who have kids who have done things for months at a time and them not known, like just unhealthy habits or behaviors. And those are some of the best parents that I know, who are super invested in their kids' lives. And, so there is a realm in like, this is where I'm saying, this is where there's the tension. Like, there is a realm in which I could see where he absolutely didn't know. And like he said, I should have known. Like, so there is that culpability in it, and also have grace for it. Like, I don't know. It's just so complex. And I think it's so much information to take in such a short period of time. And I think all of us were hoping for this like dream scenario where just like, a coach with 15 years of experience, and who's made it to multiple championships of whatever conference they're in, and who knows how to recruit in the Big Ten in the Midwest. And you know what I mean? Like, you have this dream checklist. And the situation that Michigan State is in, getting rid of Jonathan Smith, like, you were never going to be able to check all those boxes. And so now we're actually met with the rubber meets the road of like, okay, these are the boxes that are left unchecked. And there's a couple of them that personally, as of right now, I don't know that I am happy with them being unchecked. And I probably would have preferred some different boxes to remain unchecked. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure in the coming weeks we're going to be talking about this more as he fills out his coaching staff. I mean, depending on when you're listening to this, the National Signing Day is happening on December 3rd. The transfer portal, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in our seminar segment this week. There's gonna be a lot of things to talk about regarding Pat Fitzgerald
Yeah.
in this program in the coming weeks.
We're gonna do our best to stay on top of it and help you guys stay on top of it.
But it's going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out from a football perspective, from a non-football perspective. No matter how you slice this, whether you are elated with this hire, whether you hate this hire, or if you're somewhere in between, like there are question marks. There are, how is he going to do in this new era? How is he going to do at Michigan State?
Does he have what it takes to bounce back from high school coaching to going to the most competitive conference, two of the most competitive conferences in all of college football?
Exactly. And we won't know a lot of those answers until next fall. I think we'll get some clues and some signs of some of what the direction of this football program is.
Well, and I think before we move on completely to the transfer portal and our Spartan seminar on that today, I think I have two things that I just want to float out there. First is that we still have to keep in mind the entire climate of Michigan State, and we're going to talk about this more in a couple of minutes with the transfer portal. I mean, Jonathan Smith was not a good recruiter. I think that's safe to say. We don't have these amazing recruits lined up for Pat Fitzgerald next season. So it's hard to even say, like, we'll see what happens next fall. I mean, we will, but like, good Lord, I think I'm already mentally prepared for next season to just completely be a wash, which is just, it's really hard to do that. That's why I said a couple weeks ago, like, get the football program going, let me know how we're doing in 3 to 5 years. I'll just be here paying attention to Michigan State basketball. Not actually, because we love this football program and this school. So that's number one. Number two is most times I feel like when a head coach leaves, their coaching staff follows. I mean, with Mel Tucker, we retained only one coach, right? Which was Courtney.
Once he left
Hawkins. Yeah. We retained one coach from his staff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I think it was just Courtney Hawkins. Have you heard anything? Is there any indication? Like, I thought maybe there was, right? Joe Rossi is interim head coach.
Yeah,
for one
whatever
day.
that means. Yeah.
Like, is he staying? Do you think there's any chance that someone like Courtney Hawkins is going to survive this coaching change again? Do you know what I mean? Like, have you heard anything? Is there anything we should expect?
There's not a lot of things that are concrete.
I mean, I would think like he's not coming in with a whole coaching staff because he hasn't been coaching. So probably not going to like clean house in the same way. Maybe not.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what ends up happening.
The more we talk about this, the more I'm like, oh, crap.
He's been eyeing a return for a long time. And I'm
sure he's, got his people that he
I'm
wants.
100% confident that he has been talking with potential staff members, potential coaches on if they would want to coach with him at his next stop.
Yeah.
So going into this, he has people in mind. He's coached for a long time. He has
got
a lot of
connections
relationships.
In the Big Ten, and elsewhere, I'm sure.
I mean, there's still a lot of his former coaches at Northwestern that are there. So there's no like, yes, this guy is going to be this position. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a handful of current coaches that are retained. Again, this is like, not that this is going to happen, but like just names that people wouldn't be surprised if they were retained. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if I would agree with it if Joe Rossi is retained. Wouldn't be surprised if Courtney Hawkins is retained. I wouldn't be surprised if Coach Legge was retained. I think guys like
who had a really big hand in recruitment and like player relationship and development. Like, again, this team and this roster has gone through so much in the last we keep saying this, however many time, much time you could be at Michigan State and still be in college right now. like you'd think that you'd have to retain some people to hope to bring or keep anyone back.
Yeah, to keep the roster, to keep the class together, have people who are directly familiar with Michigan State and the community. So I would not be surprised if there is 2 or 3 or 4 coaches retained from this current staff. I'm sure he already has a good idea of who he wants as his defense coordinator, who he wants as his offensive coordinator, some of the other supporting staff. And I'm sure in the coming days, we're going to start hearing more names. I think in a lot of ways, he does kind of have to act fast just with transfer portal coming up.
Yeah.
And then like really before long, like winter conditioning and spring football, like all this stuff happens so quickly in the off season. And I think too, for a guy who's been out of coaching for several years, who hasn't really coached in this current era of college football, the staff that he hires is going to be very, very important.
So important.
Mm-hmm.
The more we're talking, I mean, I knew I was kind of being pessimistic, but I've been trying to be optimistic. I mean, I even wore my home field "It's a Beautiful Day for Football" t-shirt because I was like, I need to channel some joy for the football program. As we're talking, I just keep getting, I don't think depressed is the right word, but like, oh crap. Like just more, and it's like you peel back one layer and you're like, oh, is this actually better? And then you peel back another layer and you're like, oh, we got to deal with all of that. Like, I'm not ready for the emotional toll of like players leaving and recruits leaving and new coach who has, this iffy background. And then we don't know if we're keeping coaching staff. We don't know what new coaching staff we're going to get. Next year's going to suck.
Yeah, I think that's all fair points. There's a lot still that we're going to find out quickly. It's going to be a wild ride, that's for sure.
All right, so this is a good moment to jump into Spartan Seminar, which is a point in the show where we try to, maybe teach you something new. Usually it's Jonah teaching me something new because, like I said, queen of BS over here. I act like I know what I'm talking about when it comes to sports, but I just make a lot of facial expressions and get really loud. So one of the things that we talked about on a previous episode, I think, was that the transfer portal is shortened this year. But there's actually been multiple changes when it comes to the transfer portal compared to last season. So the first, from my understanding, is that before it was like a 30-day window, kind of over the month of December last year, and then also another shorter window in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
Main change now is that there is one 15-day 14-day window for transfers that starts January 2nd of 2026. And then so anyone who wanted to transfer from football programs this season, they cannot until January 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's a couple of exceptions. Can you walk me through those?
Yeah, so in the previous kind of iteration of the transfer portal, when a team were to fire their coach, it would open up a window of time where current players could enter the portal outside of those two kind of standard windows.
Okay.
But now, instead of players being able to do that immediately upon so no Michigan State players were going to be able to enter the transfer portal yesterday when Jonathan Smith was fired.
But last year, if their coach had been fired, they would have been able to.
Right.
Okay.
Now it's when a new coach is hired / announced 5 days after that point, then players are able to enter the portal.
Okay. So under Mel Tucker, as soon as it was announced that he was fired, any of those players could immediately enter the portal. Now, let's say Jonathan Smith got fired on Sunday, but they didn't announce the new coach until Saturday. No players could enter the transfer portal
officially
during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And now, once the new head coach is announced, they still have to wait 5 more days to enter the portal. Correct. Officially.
Yeah.
Which, what does that even mean? in the
I mean, it
day and
means you
age
can't
of,
be officially contacted
right,
by
okay,
other teams, other coaches.
but they're marketing themselves, and their agents can start working things,
right,
I'm
and they
sure.
will. And I mean, Michigan State's already had a couple guys announce their intentions to enter the transfer portal.
Okay, before we get to that though, so there's the two exceptions. So the transfer portal opens January 2nd. It's open for 14 days. The exception is if your coach gets fired, you have a new head coach announced, you get to enter the transfer portal officially 5 days later than that. How long is that window open?
I think it's a 30-day window.
Okay, so you have a long time. And then there's also the other exception that teams who are in the playoffs past January 2 or whatever, when the normal portal opens, they also get a 5-day window after their bowl game is done, or playoff game is
if it's
done,
5
or
days,
whatever.
but they have a window after.
Regardless of if their coach got fired or not, it's just that they're playing later into the season, and so then they get an opportunity. Okay, so just so we're all on the same page about what happens with transfer portal. Now, this is where I keep having my oh crap moments. Is not to anyone's surprise, there have already been Michigan State players who have announced that they plan to enter the portal. Foremost among them being Nick Marsh. I don't think, as much as I didn't want that to be true, like, I'm not surprised by that in the slightest. It still sucks like a punch to the gut, but it makes so much sense, especially knowing how highly sought after he was last year and how difficult it seemed for Michigan State to retain him with all of the NIL, backing at his disposal. That's not surprising. Also, losing our bright offensive spot from the season and Mekhi Frazier, it seems like he's also indicating that he's planning to enter the portal. So 2 big losses on offense right away. No word from Childs.
Yeah, those are the only 2 players that I'm aware of that have announced any kind of intentions. I mean, the reality of this is...
What about Alessio, though? Because didn't his dad come out and say, like, not happy with the firing of
there's
Jonathan
been no
Smith?
indication that Alessio has or will be. Not that he won't, but there hasn't been any formal indication of that yet. And the reality is whether or not who was hired, there's going to be a lot of players that enter the portal. There's going to be a lot of turnover. At the same time, just because the player enters the transfer portal doesn't mean they won't end up coming back.
That's true.
To Michigan State.
Just because they've declared doesn't mean... I mean, and that's... I do like the change of, like, making players wait. I could go to places like talking about Trey Holloman and not waiting and making rash decisions. In my opinion, it's from, these are college kids. As much as everyone hates to hear this, with non-fully developed frontal lobes, like, it's so easy to make snap decisions. So, like, I do really appreciate, and I do actually think it's in the best interest of players to make them wait. Like, realizing, like, these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids who are seeing dollar signs, who are hearing, things thrown out, and not necessarily feeling the weight or the reality of the situation. So I do like that they're giving new coaches at least the opportunity to, like, win some of these guys over and at least, like, market themselves, see what they can do to help that student stay committed to the university. Because I think that's so much of it. Like, Tom Izzo talks about that all the time, like, loyalty to your school, caring more about the name on the front of your jersey than the back of your jersey. And that shouldn't just change because of coaching. Yeah, coach is going to have a huge impact on that. Like, that's a big reason why players go to a certain school, is to play under a certain person. So I do like that.
Yeah, and it gives the new coach an opportunity to have actual conversations with these players, to sell themselves to the players, sell their vision for the program. So these players can be making as informed decision as possible.
Versus just knee jerk. Yeah.
Because the reality is, like, just because X player was making this much under Jonathan Smith doesn't mean that that's how Pat Fitzgerald is going to allocate those funds in either direction. But also, like, he has the opportunity to be like, hey, like, this is the program that we're planning on implementing. Like, it gives everybody the opportunity to have as much information, or at least more information than in previous iterations of these rules.
Yeah. It does. Maybe this is like a really entitled way for me to look at it as like a fan who doesn't want people to be able to just like leave so easily. But I do feel like when the transfer portal restrictions were lifted, like meaning, how long has it been now? Where previously, if you entered the transfer portal and you transferred to a different school, you had to sit out for a year before you could play for that team. But it's been, it's pre-COVID, right?
I think, 2019, 2020.
Right in that era of, opening things up to make it so easy for people to transfer.
And it's just gotten easier since then.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it was just a huge pendulum swing where before you used to, get in huge trouble if somebody bought you a hamburger and you had to sit out for a year if you decided to transfer schools because you were actually in a bad situation, for any number of reasons, or, weren't getting, like, there were legitimate reasons why players needed to transfer that wasn't just for money or more playing time or different things. But then the pendulum, it felt like, just swung so far the other direction with all restrictions on transferring taken away, and actually made it very, very, very easy for players to transfer. And now they're getting agents, and now there's money behind it, and now there's donors behind it, and there's revenue sharing behind it, of like, in some ways, are we actually doing what's best for players? Like, are we actually doing what's best for students? Or are we just turning them into little capitalistic workers when they should be getting, I don't know. That's just my, like, I mean that though.
No,
like, is that actually what's best for like some of these really young players who should be in a stage of life where, like, get paid, get that money. I'm not saying that. Like, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
However, like, going to the highest bidder isn't always the best thing for you in your life. And like, sometimes sitting in a situation that's actually tougher and demands a little bit more of you might be the best thing for you in your life.
Right. And some of these changes, I think, are good changes that are going to help the current landscape of college football.
I hope so. I hope. I'm just like, there's so many, and I hope I'm not alone in feeling this way.
No, I think everybody's in the same boat.
Spinning, and like, feel like I'm drinking out of a fire hose, and there's just, of course, so many opinions. And I think you posted on our Twitter just asking for like, okay, Smith's been fired. It seems like this was yesterday. Pat Fitzgerald is going to be, I can't say his name. Call him Fitz. That Fitzgerald's going to be the new head coach, like, immediate reactions. And it just shows like perception. I was like, everyone's going to hate this. But then it was only like 4% of people that were like, absolutely hate this. And there was a lot of people who were like, yeah, I'm open to it. And there are a lot of people who were like, nah, I could go either way. So all that to say, like, there's just been so much that has happened in the last 24 hours. So many opinions, so many different reasons why you could be forming opinions. I feel like we touched on a lot of them so far.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll talk about it more, and there's going to be a lot more to talk about in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, and I think tomorrow is going to be very telling, right? Because he's supposed to have his first press conference at Michigan
Tuesday
State.
at 3 o'clock.
I assume he's going to be at the Iowa basketball game tomorrow night. It's a big week in basketball, starting Big Ten play. We face Duke at home on Saturday. Oh, heavens, there's so much.
Well, let's transition to basketball, but before we get there, let's do our.
I was gonna say we got some other sports to cover.
Let's do halftime, and then we'll finish on some basketball talk.
Time for some halftime updates.
It is.
Take it away, Jonah.
So this week in Spartan sports, I'm working on that.
Sounded real nice. Good
women's
job.
basketball team also had a very good Thanksgiving week as they headed down to the Bahamas in the Baha Mar Championship, facing Temple in the first round and defeating them, and then having their first real Power 4 opponent in Clemson. And I believe they won that game by 8. They moved to 8-0 now in the season. Continue to, just be a very talented offensive team taking care of business. Undefeated into December. They also start conference play this week as well. But just like the men's team, they're keeping things rolling, and I'm being impressive in doing so. Men's hockey this week swept Colgate on Wednesday and Friday. Kind of a little weirder schedule with Thanksgiving week. They're currently ranked number 3 in the country behind Michigan and Wisconsin, which they end up playing Michigan in East Lansing on Friday night this week and in Ann Arbor Saturday night. So that's going to be a very telling and interesting series.
Which just shows how competitive and close it is in hockey that, yes, they got swept by Wisconsin, but losing 2 games after winning 11 in a row made them drop 2 spots.
Yeah.
Crazy. Which, I mean, there's a chance for them to move right back up again, taking on Michigan this weekend.
Absolutely. And then last update is your women's soccer team played Stanford on Friday evening in the Elite Eight of the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, they fell to the Cardinal 5-1. But still a great season for that team. Furthest they ever made it in the tournament.
I was gonna say, deepest run in Michigan State women's soccer history.
Continuing to just build that program under Coach Jeff Hostler. But yeah, you can't. I mean, still a very positive in Michigan State athletics, seeing their team win the Big Ten regular season, move all the way to the Elite Eight, and have a fantastic season.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes me thankful for all of the Spartan sports out there and all the people who are doing all the things. We get to talk about my favorite topic next. And like you said, it was a fantastic Thanksgiving week for Michigan State basketball programs. Michigan State, after beating Detroit Mercy last week, headed on down to Fort Myers, Florida. They faced off against East Carolina on Tuesday. Very dominant performance after a first initial 5 minutes of some sloppy play. Tom Izzo got right after them in the huddle, told them they were making a bunch of turnovers that they had no excuses for. And there was kind of no looking back after that. I really felt like they came out of that huddle and were just like, all right, we're gonna smack down. We're done with this.
Yeah, and they did. That's for sure.
There's I think so much that you could talk about in that game. Was it that important of a game? No. We shot 50% from 3. That was real nice. I think close to 60% from the field in general.
Yeah. I think actually in that game they shot just below 50%.
I think they were 5 for 10.
5 for 10 against North Carolina.
How?
I think they were 43 or 44%.
All right, whatever. Better than the 22 whatever we were averaging earlier in the season. Jackson Kohler didn't miss a basket in that game. He was 4 for 4 from 3, 6 for 6 from the field. I think he ended up having 16 points. Just all around very impressive performance from him. I think Fears had 10 assists on the game and he only played
28 minutes.
20 some minutes. So, exactly what the Spartans should have done going into that game and prepping for North Carolina. They faced off against on Thanksgiving Day. And I mean, from the get-go, that game was explosive. I mean, I think first points for Michigan State was a 3 from
Trey Fort.
Thank you. I was trying to remember if it was Kurtang or Trey Fort. Followed by a huge slam from Cohen. And then it was just slams at both ends from Caleb Wilson, from Cohen Carr. I mean, it was just oh my gosh, how are we ever going to get anything done in this game? But Michigan State just kept showing up, just kept playing fantastic defense, started moving the ball really, really well. We're taking good shots. We're working to control the paint, which was their motto of the game. Just overall, fantastic performance from pretty much everyone on the court once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Great performance again from Kohler. Carson Cooper, I think, had one of his best games as a Spartan. Again, Jeremy Fears set a career high for the 3rd time this season.
In points,
just showing ability to score from kind of all levels, from behind the arc, pull-up game, getting to the hoop, knocking down free throws. Again, when we talked about Jeremy Fears a lot, I don't think you can say enough positive things about just that level of play that he's playing at right now. As a team, like you mentioned, rebounding and defense, which is the identity of Tom Izzo, is being exemplified by this team. holding North Carolina to a season low in points. They scored 58 points to a team that's
crazy.
averaging over 80 a game.
That's crazy.
It's had some big wins, kind of smacked Kansas earlier this season, was ranked number 16. Michigan State now has 3.
And just handled them. I mean, we ended up winning by 16 points.
Exactly.
And you're probably so sick of hearing this, but I think just another thing that stood out to me about that game and Michigan State's level of unselfish play is that Cohen was kind of just silent that game. Besides a couple of nice slams, most of the time we were playing 4-on-4 on offense. Like Cohen was just standing in the corner and keeping Love off of that double team and keeping him just kind of out of play, because you can't leave Cohen open because he's so explosive. And they kind of just chose to like, hey, I think actually the better thing here is for us to just take a North Carolina defender out of commission and just not really even give Cohen the ball.
Absolutely.
And thinking back to Kentucky too, like I felt like he didn't have a great game against them, but I think a lot of that too was trying to take, was it Owe that out that he was matched up against that whole game? Like there's just so many elements that you're seeing about this team in different scenarios. And I think all of these teams are trying to throw something different at Michigan State to challenge that identity, to challenge that defend, rebound, run, to challenge the controlling the paint, to challenge the breakaway, fast break points. And Michigan State is just continuing to pivot and use the personnel that they have to take out whatever opponent is what they're throwing at them.
Yeah, and Michigan State is now the only team in the country to have 3 wins over currently ranked top 25 opponents. Kentucky's still ranked, Arkansas still ranked, North Carolina still ranked. They are now ranked number 7 in the country. I feel like finally kind of, maybe not finally, but deservingly getting the credit and respect that they deserve early in this season. And a big week this week, like you said, starting off conference play against fellow undefeated team Iowa, which I think is going to be a fun one on Tuesday night at the Breslin Center, and then Saturday night hosting number 4 Duke. So just a really
a big week for MSU
massive
basketball.
Opportunity for Michigan State to get some additionally big wins.
Huge resume builders.
Starting hopefully Big Ten play 1-0 with another opportunity at a top 5 win. Like you said, huge resume builder. If they can get these 2 wins this week, like they're going to be set up fantastic for March.
Well, and as fun as it is as a fan and exciting to get these big wins early in the season, which is fantastic. Like I want every single one of them, but unfortunately those games are going to matter a lot less when it comes to seeding in the tournament than this Iowa game is going to, than this Duke game is going to. Because similarly to how we talked about at the beginning of the season, like, oh, it doesn't really matter what happens with these 4 games. It's going to be a good test of Michigan State. Like that's a lot of how the committee looks at it too. Like that was really early season. These teams hadn't been able to develop yet. I'm sure if Michigan State played North Carolina in February instead, that could have looked like a very different matchup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't take anything away from Tom and like getting these boys rolling so well so early in the season. Like you are still going to have those victories. That's still going to be a positive for you. However, the stakes keep getting higher the later we get into the season. And we talked about before, like if you had told me we won 2 of the 4 matchups, would have been thrilled. Those 4 matchups being Arkansas, Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, like these top 25 matchups, prior to Christmas break. Now we've got 3 of the 4 with the 4th still pending. And I'm like, we need all 4.
Yeah.
Like they keep feeling more and more and more important to win. I don't know. I don't think my brain or body can handle just like the stress that is being thrown at it from the university this week. There's too much. I can't process it all. I'm just trying to enjoy Christmas time.
But there has been a lot of football talk over the last 3 or 4 days. It's nice that Tuesday night.
Yes.
We get to go back to basketball.
We get to recenter. We get to hear the squeaking of the shoes in the court. We get to breathe in the smell of the popcorn. Sorry, I'm being ridiculous. Yeah. Thank goodness for basketball. Thank goodness for just like
stability,
the calm, anchoring voice and presence of Tom Izzo. It's just hilarious that I'm calling him calm because he's the most irate person sometimes. Yeah. I don't know. Like, there's so much to talk about with this team. I think one thing that I want to address is we've been accused by some listeners of the podcast, family members, of drinking the Jeremy Fears Jr. Kool-Aid. And I want to, maybe I'm doing this too much, like hedging our bets on this podcast, but like Jeremy this season has been knocking my socks off.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so easy, and this is why I hate talking about this, but you talked about it, I think, on the last episode of how, Cassius Winston is the current Big Ten all-time assist leader.
Mm-hmm.
Smith from Purdue is set to break that record pretty easily, if he continues on any sort of trajectory of what he is on currently, and how through the same number of games as Cash at that point in his career and Smith at that point in their career, I think 53 games in or whatever, Jeremy Fears is outpacing even that assist record. And I think there's so many things that immediately people hear that and just think that you are comparing him to Cash across the board. And it's like, no, we're talking about this one specific thing. All we're saying is, like, I think Jeremy has gotten a lot of, how do I want to say this? I don't think he's gotten a lot of hate. He hasn't gotten a lot of love or like a lot of trust, I feel like, through his first season and a half and entering this season. I think it's just saying like he could be him. He could be it. And like that's where I think you and I are both
I'll go one step further. Jeremy Fears is him. Jeremy Fears is it.
Right now. Like he's still untested. And I think you could argue like, Cash didn't get very many minutes in his first 53 games or whatever.
He was the starting point guard on an Elite Eight team, on a Big Ten championship team.
Yeah.
Now he's the starting point guard on a team that's earned a top 10 ranking, not just because they got a bunch of nice transfers.
I love the pushback. Bring it. And that's where I'm saying, like,
he
people
have
accused, like, drinking the Kool-Aid or whatever, or being like, whatever. He's got so much more to prove. But I just, like, you have to look at him as a whole and everything that he has overcome to get to this point, and the fact that this is the first year that he's been able to be, like, fully basketball invested heading into a season for a full year. Like, that's paying off, and he's continuing to show us. And no, not every single game is he going to keep setting a new career high. But the kid's averaging nearly a double-double with points and assists. Like he's at like 9.7 assists a game or something.
And I'm not saying that he's better than Cassius Winston or is going to be better than Cassius Winston. I'm just saying like he is playing right now as a sophomore at a higher level than Cassius Winston was as a sophomore. And there's a lot of factors. Cassius Winston wasn't getting as much run as a sophomore, but he didn't really explode into the scene until his junior year.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
And Jeremy Fears came in to Michigan State with Tyson Walker and AJ Hoggard, took over as a redshirt freshman, started, I think, every game last year. Had a lot of assists last year, having an elite amount of assists so far this season.
And I don't think it's unfair to say, like, part of the reason probably AJ Hoggard transferred was because he knew what Michigan State was getting in Jeremy
Part
Fears.
of the reason Trey Holloman transferred.
Oh, huge reason,
So, Jeremy Fears hasn't accomplished as much as Cassius Winston. I'm not saying Jeremy Fears is as good
Doesn't
as
mean
Cassius.
We can't still be high on him.
But Jeremy Fears is still him. He's still one of the very best point guards in the entire country right now.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I just wanted to float that out there. Another person, because there's so many fantastic players on this team. Like you said, Carson Cooper had, truly just like a phenomenal game against UNC. And it's one of those elements where you just hear Tom Izzo in the back of your mind saying like stats don't mean anything, because you just have to watch the quality of his play, who he was having to defend. I mean, freaking brawl under the hoop the whole game. The one-handed slam and one that he had, every time I watch it, it floors me more. Like, how the heck did that man get the ball in the hoop? He's literally like falling out of bounds, catches, slams, gets completely hacked. Like, oh, he just like he had such a good game. And then Jackson Kohler, yet again, just like Mr. Consistent, against East Carolina, whatever, didn't miss a bucket. And then against UNC, he's putting up a casual double-double again. Like, he's just doing it. Both him and Cooper, like, they're just showing up and they're playing well. And I think that's something that Tom was critiquing them after the Colgate game, after the San Jose State game, of like, I got some veteran players out there who can be doing better. And they heard him and they are stepping it up in these big time matchups. Kurt Tang, Trey Fort, like, continuing to see really good flashes from both of them. And I think in general, both of them are performing a lot more consistently defensively and offensively. Been really impressed with them. Divine had an incredible game against Eastern Carolina. Love to see him just like be able to have that space and those minutes. Another guy that I feel like the stat line did not reflect his quality of play against UNC. Like, I think if you look at the his stats, I think he had 2 points, 2 turnovers, like 1 rebound, but I felt like he was very impactful in the moment, with his physical movement on the court, with his ball movement, with his speed, his aggression, his defensive prowess. Like, feel like he made a really big impact. And I have to shout out my sister. She made a really, really relevant and I think like important observation after the UNC game. Was I think that game was very telling of the lineup moving forward. Through the first couple of big matchups, you saw really like decent minutes from kind of like 10 different guys. But against UNC, did we see Jesse McCullough at all? Very minimal minutes.
Very minimal.
If so, saw quite a few minutes from Cam Ward. I think he ended up having 11 points. He had a fantastic game. Saw some decent minutes from Divine. Saw some decent minutes from Kurtang. And I think those might be safe to say, like, that's kind of the majority of the subs that you're going to be seeing.
Yeah, I mean, sprinkle in some Jordan Scott. Minutes as well. But yeah,
I really hope that he can fight his way into that lineup, because I think he has the ability to develop this season. I don't think he's one of those players that needs to wait until next year to explode, and I think he can be really solid. But yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how that plays out. I thought it was very interesting that, both Scott and McCullough got as few minutes as they did. Maybe not surprising, but like, okay, maybe Tom is starting to kind of tighten things up a little bit. And that doesn't mean that with certain matchups or certain days, if Cam Ward's having a bad day, if, Kurt Tang's having a bad day, if Cohen's out of it, like, that you're not going to see good minutes still from McCullough and Scott. But I think I kind of agree with that might be safe to assume, like, those are going to be your first 3 guys coming in off the bench.
Yeah. But another fun week, another big week coming up. Obviously, we've talked a lot about a lot of things. We're probably overloading you guys right now. I feel overloaded with how much is going.
Overloaded. And we have barely even previewed Iowa or Duke. So
do your own homework.
Yeah. Undefeated Iowa at home.
Undefeated Duke at home.
First, game opener in the Big Ten. Tomorrow night, probably new football head coach being presented at that game. It's probably going to be a pretty electric environment. I can't imagine a world in which the Duke game isn't going to be even more electric than that. Like you said, 2 undefeated teams. Does Duke play anyone between now and then?
They do. I forget who it is. They play an
chance,
SEC.
Chance for them to maybe not be undefeated by the time we meet them. But we did it against UNC. They were also 7-0 going into that game, 6-0 going into that game. So we can do it. We probably have to do it twice this week.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, we're going to do our best to keep you guys updated. I'm sure we will be back with another episode following the Duke game, maybe sooner, depending on how many things develop this week. If we are not enough for you, this is just one more plug to head on over to Spartans Illustrated. Be sure to subscribe. because there's so much going on. I can't keep it all straight. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks for putting up with our chaos. We really appreciate you guys being here. Like I said, this is the time when people want to know what's going on in the MSU sports world. So if you're gonna, have any conversations with anyone, maybe just like airdrop them this episode or text it to them.
Yeah.
Or be like, hey, have you heard of the We Got It podcast? You should check it out. They're gonna yap at you a whole lot and not really tell you much, but we got a lot of opinions. All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Go Green.
Go White.
Go State.